Hey guys, Adam Fenig here with Fenig Equipment. You're tuned into the Talking Shed. Hey, today I'm back here in Gert's Corner. This is what we call our plumbing section of our warehouse, and I'm going to go over a few tips and go over some things that I want you to look over on your planter fertilizer setup system here this spring. First thing I want to talk about is these Wilger flow indicators. These serve two purposes, very important purposes for you. One of them is they serve as a manifold. So from that main line from your pump, we go into the bottom of these red balls and we branch out the top, and it serves as your manifold. You do not need that round manifold that you may have on your planter. The red balls can replace that manifold and do a much better job. The second thing these red balls are going to do is gauge your flow. So there are 4 different balls in here, and you use the correct one given your rate, speed, and pressure, and that ball should float right about in the center of that column, and where that ball is kind of tells you the flow. So if that ball falls all the way to the bottom, you have a blockage. That can save you a ton of time and money if you can catch a block much sooner than if you did not have these on your planter. So very, very handy tool. The next thing I'm going to talk about, and most of you should have on your planter, is a check valve. The check valve does 2 things. Basically, whenever there is a lack of pressure, less than 5 to 8 psi in your line, this check valve will lock and not allow any of that liquid to fall whenever you're turning your plant around. So it can save a lot of fertilizer over time. Another thing this check valve does is if you take it apart, it houses your orifice. Your orifice fits right inside that check valve, and it's a good place to put that orifice, and it goes right in line as well. Speaking of orifices, this may be really hard to see, but the orifice does 2 things. It regulates pressure across the system. So from row 12 to row 1, you've got the same PSI across. That's what this regulating orifice does. The second thing it does is it regulates flow. If you can see that tiny hole in there, each orifice has a very precisely cut hole in it, and that hole is a certain number size based on your rate, speed, and pressure. You need to do the math on that to be sure that given your rate, speed, and pressure, you have the correct orifice to get the correct amount of flow to each row. So if you've changed fertilizers or speeds over the last few years, I urge you to give Fenig Equipment a call, have Gert run the numbers on your orifice to make sure you've got the right one. That's a very important part of the system. Next, I'm going to talk about this gauge. Gauges are a very simple thing to change out, and they're a very simple thing that can go wrong. I've seen them stuck on 40 before. You think that you're putting out 40 PSI when really you're only doing 15. I've seen it several times. Check those gauges and get yourself a new one if you need one. Last thing I'm going to talk about today is the calibration jugs. Something very simple and easy to do. Go ahead and get yourself a jug and catch your product for 1 minute, and then do the math on the distance that you've traveled over that minute of time. It's the only way in some systems to know exactly how much product you're putting out. If we're doing a ground drive system, we may not have a rate controller that tells you the exact gallons per minute or gallons per acre. So get yourself a simple calibration jug,